Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in to all of our members, subscribers, and viewers from all across the world. If you're new to this channel, I have these live streams on a regular basis alongside videos that I post regularly. If you prefer shorter form videos, you can go ahead to my video tab where I post regular videos that are shorter with updates. If you prefer more in-depth talk and analysis and community participation, then you've come to the right place with this live stream. In this live stream, I wanted to talk to you about the latest developments with regards to the preparations from Iran and the coalition that we're seeing happening and developing, not just with Iran and Russia, and now Belarus is participating as well. But it's a much bigger coalition, and the statements that we're getting from the officials who are attending these meetings are confirming that they're preparing for something bigger than just a retaliation from Iran and its allies in the region, the resistance movements against Israel. And the primary reason for that is the fact that there is an understanding, there is a clear understanding from Iran and from the resistance fronts that any retaliation that's going to be significant, what we're hearing now, it's going to be significant. We've had a confirmation from Abdul Malik al-Houthi, the leader of Ansarullah in Yemen, highlighting and clarifying about the delay, saying that it's for tactical purposes only and that Israel and its allies are taking measures, taking safety measures, and we want to make sure that this response will be significant. The tone that we're hearing from Yemen hints that we're seeing a joint response. The tones that we're getting from Iran and Hezbollah are a little bit different. I'm not sure if that's deliberate. With regards to Ansarullah, they clarified several times that it's going to be a joint response. They said it's going to be a joint response. Hezbollah said more than once that Israel doesn't know if it's going to be a joint response or if it's going to be a response only from us individually and other resistance movements from the resistance fronts in the region and Iran directly. That's intended to continue the psychological war on Israel because Israel is taking a lot of pressure. It's under significant pressure, unprecedented when it comes to the preparation, when it comes to the safety of its leaders, when it comes to the economy, when it comes to the civilians, when it comes to every single thing in Israel, not just in Israel, but abroad, because they also are considering the fact that Iran might target a senior Israeli figure abroad or something that's linked to Israel abroad and not just something inside of the Israeli territory. Now, with the notion that these countries are understanding, in particular Iran and anyone in the Iranian sphere in this coalition, and when we're talking about Iran, we're talking about, of course, Russia, China, North Korea, Belarus, and the resistance movements and other countries as well that Russia is strengthening ties with. They understand that there will be a response, but they're preparing, and that could be one of the reasons that they're preparing with such intensity. Firstly, and we spoke about it intensively, the many airplanes that are coming from Russia, the Ilyushin, with military equipment for Iran. Sergei Shoigu visiting Iran after Kim Jong-un was visiting Far East China and developing ties. And of course, North Korea, they had a defense treaty with Russia, which is something very significant, meaning any country that would be attacked would be supported by the country that it has the treaty with. Now, we had the Belarusian Air Force commander in Iran. And what I wanted to note here, something very important, any meetings that are taking place at the moment are very significant and they are sending messages. Why? Because you have a country that is clearly intending and said that it will have a significant attack, significant response on Israel for the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh in Tehran. So everyone visiting that country, anyone who's in communication with that country, will be considered as a participant, as a supporter, unless they are coming as a messenger, such as in the case of Jordan. Although the Jordanian foreign minister claimed at the time that they are neither carrying a message to nor from Israel, they were clearly trying to persuade Iran not to have an attack, and we still have diplomatic pressure on Iran. Why? Because the attack hasn't happened yet. So to any interested party, there is still space to persuade them not to carry out this attack in return to financial favors, things to do with embargo, things to do with the international community, or what they label as the international community, amongst other things as well. We had a report about this visit. They didn't elaborate too much. I'm going to share what they spoke about in this report, but I will elaborate a little bit further from my end and why the Belarusian Air Force chief was in Tehran. So we had a report that was in IRNA from Iran, of course, saying that General Lukyanovich, who is also the commander of Belarus's Air Defense Force, met with Major General Sayed Abdul Rahim Musawi, the chief commander of the Iranian army, on Wednesday. The meeting focused on the shared threats and common interests faced by both Iran and Belarus, including American unilateralism and sanctions imposed by the United States and its European allies. They continued. General Musawi highlighted Belarus's strategic position as a barrier against NATO's expansion, saying that the Islamic Republic is also opposed to the enlargement of the US-led military alliance. If we stop there for a second, again, note the terminology that we're talking about here, the unilateralism and NATO. Unilateralism and NATO. You're not just talking about a response, you're talking about the bigger picture. Why? Because the NATO is constantly expanding. They're trying to form further, stronger coalitions and bonds in the Middle East and in Southeast Asia to face China. Southeast Asian NATO, they're calling it, the Chinese, that is being formed by the United States of America against China, of course. And this terminology that's being used in their descriptions clearly highlights that they're looking at something bigger than this simple response. They're looking at what's after this response, because there are very many indications that we're headed towards a World War III, and many people are saying that it's not far-fetched to say that now with the level of tensions that we're having in Europe, of course, and in the Middle East, let alone with China and Taiwan. That's being put on hold temporarily, although actions are still being taken by the administration, because you have Ukraine and now you have Gaza. Lukyanovich, in response, reiterated his country's opposition to American unilateralism, again, and NATO's expansion. He also said that Belarus is committed to deepening military ties with Iran. Additionally, the Belarusian commander visited the Iranian Air Force headquarters, where he met with Brigadier General Hamid Vahidi, the commander of the Iranian Air Force. General Wahidi said that Iran and Belarus have the same views on regional and global challenges, which he attributed to the actions of the US and the Zionist regime. Lukyanovich also expressed Belarus's desire to expand military and defense cooperation with Iran's armed forces. That's not coming out of a vacuum, of course. Number one, Iran supported Russia in its war in Ukraine. Belarus is a massive participant in that war. They already have coordination, but this visit isn't coming just as a casual visit. It's coming before the attack of Iran on Israel. What can Belarus offer here? Belarus can offer several things that are in line with Russia. When it comes to the defense, when it comes to the fighter jets, Russia could be sending things through Belarus to Iran, alongside the things that they send them with their Ilyushins as well. And they want to make sure that they have a strong coalition between all of the countries involved. This is a strategy that's there from Russia too. It's not just coming from Iran. The actions that are happening from Belarus with Iran are similar to what's happening between North Korea and Iran and Russia. Of course, that's through China. Why? Because Belarus is heavily dependent on Russia. Likewise, North Korea is very dependent on China. So both these countries want to make sure that the ties are very strong between everyone in this alliance, and that they have the same vision to the future. Now, Iran is taking steps. It's not just, firstly, we had this talk coming from the Secretary General of Hezbollah, Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah, who said that the delay is part of the response and the effects that it's having on Israel, that we elaborated on a couple of times. Things to do with the economy, things to do with the preparedness of Israel, the tensions. It's stunting the state. It's freezing Israel. It's causing a lot of problems. And you're talking about operations being run from bunkers inside of Israel. The security on Benjamin Netanyahu is unprecedented. Likewise with all of the top figures in Israel, every single one of them. We have confirmations that Netanyahu doesn't move unless he's authorized by the head of his security team. And we have similar restrictions when it comes to the other Israeli top figures in the security establishment as well. People are trying to tone it down. We had a joint press conference, a statement, from Qatar, Egypt, and the United States, calling on all parties to continue the talks on the 15th of August, saying that we have something on the table. All it takes is just to reach a couple of details, and let's just get it over and done with. We're probably seeing last attempts from these countries to de-escalate before things go all out. Another interesting development we had was Iran closing its airspace. Iran, yesterday we had a report that they closed their airspace for 3 hours to have military drills. And the report, funny enough, it came from Egypt. Egypt's Civil Aviation Ministry said Wednesday it has ordered Egyptian airlines to avoid Iranian airspace for 3 hours the following day, meaning today. They were ordered to avoid Iranian airspace for 3 hours, according to the Civil Aviation Ministry in Egypt. The warning came amid skyrocketing regional tensions following the assassination of Hamas leader in Tehran last week. Egypt said the caution came in the form of a notice sent by Iran to all commercial airlines. The ban from Iranian airspace will reportedly last for 3 hours. That's now in the past tense. Earlier today, from 4:30 to 7:30 a.m. on Thursday. Iran's warning also covered 3 hours earlier on Wednesday, the Egyptian ministry added. Speaking to Iran's ISNA news agency, the head of the Iranian International Airport in the capital city of Tehran, Saeed Chalalandri, denied reports of a warning against entering Western Iranian airspace, though it was not cleared whether that applied on the entire country. Clearly did not apply on the entire country. Iran is a massive country, and the drills took place in the eastern part, in the southeastern part of Iran. Israel has been bracing for an attack by Iran and its allies. They continued this report, and it's over the assassinations in Tehran of Hamas top leader Ismail Haniyeh, as well as the assassination of senior Hezbollah commander in Beirut. Both Iran and Hamas blamed Israel for the explosion that killed Haniyeh, but Israel has neither confirmed nor denied responsibility. Clearly, and this is what we're understanding here, massive preparations from Iran and from all of the countries involved and are interested in this who are siding with Iran, that are siding with Iran. In particular, of course, that would be Russia and China. Secondly, Iran is taking everything seriously, and it doesn't matter how much delay we have. To them, they're still preparing. According, again, to Hezbollah, this could come in an instance where Hezbollah would attack, or some of the resistance fronts, and Iran would have a different attack. And according to Abdul Malik al-Houthi, the only delay with this Iran plus resistance fronts attack is only due to technical issues. This is what I wanted to share with you in this live stream. Let me open the space up for all of you for your participation. And Faizi Timber saying Qatar and Egypt invited Israel ceasefire talks. Meanwhile, Iran and Hezbollah are ready for attack. What's your take on it, Watermelon? Clearly, like I said, these are the final attempts. I think these are the final attempts from the United States, from Qatar, from Egypt to de-escalate. Egypt, you're talking about the Suez Canal. That's not something that's taken lightly. Egypt would want to remain out of the picture for as long as possible. Everyone is considering their trade routes to continue the war and to keep everything open in case this war gets bigger, because the war needs to be funded. How is it funded? It's funded through the economy. Egypt plays a very big part of that, and it does not want disruptions, and it does not want to be involved. That's the main thing when it comes to Egypt. However, when it comes to Egypt, although they're trying to, de-escalate as much as possible, they know that some of the fire might come on their side. Over twice or even more, they had back and forth fire with Israel during this genocide in Gaza. The recent escalation they had with them, they covered it up as much as possible. But their recent talks with Turkey, their strategic cooperation with Turkey, the fact that Turkey is going to send them some of their latest UAVs, all of these things are significant. And notice here the alliance that's coming between Turkey and Egypt alongside the others too. Why? Because Egypt and Turkey are more tied to the United States and Western countries because of, firstly, Turkey and its position with the NATO, Egypt and its Suez Canal and its importance to the trade routes internationally. So they kind of have a joint language here when it comes to viewing the conflict. So whereas we have hot participants in the form of Iran, the resistance fronts, and potentially very soon Russia, they're intervening militarily. You're having support for Iran, the country that's about to attack and is funding and supporting these resistance movements. But Egypt and Turkey have a mutual language. When it comes to that, that's why they are increasing their level of cooperation with them in their own way. Napui, thank you so much for your super. You said the hypocrisy of the US calling for de-escalation at the same time as sending its giant warships and F-22s to the Middle East. Thank you so much. I mean, of course, hypocrisy is that's everyone has been used to. Everyone's going to Iran telling them don't attack when Israel has been committing a genocide and crimes against humanity and barbarism, and it goes against the international law and every crime under the sun, and no action is being taken against them, significant action to stop what they're committing, not just ink on paper and lip service, lip tax, you know what I mean? You need to have actions, and that hasn't been taken. And the virus 455 as well, thank you so much for your super. Let's go to the next participation. SA, that's interesting. The murder of Ismail Haniyeh is the killing of the messenger sent for negotiation used to be considered as a declaration of war. No question about it. That's 100%. If anyone sends a messenger and you kill him, that's a declaration of war. That's a declaration of war. And now Hamas really had the response with choosing Yahya Sinwar as the leader of the movement. As the leader of the movement, you're talking about a massive blow, and even the mediators, they don't know how they're gonna deal with it. The Badger, Salam Mahmoud, do you believe the retaliatory strikes will come in the next 3 days? What can be speculated at this point? Interesting. Well, this is what we can establish. Any hour, any minute that goes by brings us closer to this response. In the next 3 days is much more likely. Why? Because we're closer and it hasn't happened yet. Okay? How long could it take? Well, in my opinion, in my humble opinion, you're not looking at something that will take months to wait for. Again, unless there's something that we're not seeing here. Why? Because, it would start to look like a joke after a while, okay? And Israel, although they can establish a level of normality if a response didn't take place so far, they will keep things secure. They will keep certain things secure. So even if Iran and the resistance fronts are relying on a fact that, or expecting Israel to loosen up some of its security measures or what have you, I'm not sure how much that would be successful. But clearly, one of the main causes of the delay is the anticipation of what can come afterwards and where things could go from there. Why? Because Israel already confirmed, we're responding to any attack from Iran. We'll hurt them really badly. Yoav Gallant said, Benjamin Netanyahu said, we will respond with double the force. Now Yoav Gallant sent a message in Arabic to the population of Lebanon, using this sectarian tone, Iran, the Shia and their Hezbollah militia, similar to some of the tone that some of the defeated mentality sectarians in the Arab world use as well. Funny enough, them in Israel, they have the same approach when it comes to Iran and Hezbollah, but he's using that to try and cause friction and more tensions and sectarian tensions against the Lebanese, and warning the Lebanese people from destruction, right? So they need to have their backs. They need to protect their backs as much as possible. That's one of the main things that are causing the delay, is the anticipation of something that will lead to something bigger, undeniably. And you wouldn't have seen these Russian Ilyushins going to Iran for no reason. Why? Because even Russia knows that. Russia knows that very well. They know that it's the final battle, okay? And it hasn't been declared yet. Some of the people are not trying to portray it as such. This is the final battle. We were, and again, that's my opinion, okay? But I don't think that we're going to reach a ceasefire. It doesn't look like it. You're talking about a government that's constantly escalating, Israel. It's hard to see how Benjamin Netanyahu goes away from the scene unless someone in Israel assassinates him. What are we looking at? Escalation, because look at the pattern. 10 months, firstly, many people speculated that Israel would not invade Gaza from the get-go. They invaded Gaza. Taking so long, they took so long. Increase their barbarism, they increased their barbarism. Instigate a regional war, they did. Escalating further, they did. Refusing a ceasefire many times, they did every single thing that pushed for an expansion. So if you have that pattern, and if you understand the mentality of Benjamin Netanyahu, not just Israel as a state, but Benjamin Netanyahu himself, viewing himself as a leader that's more important than Ben Gurion, who was the first prime minister and one of the founders of Israel, the longest serving prime minister, the savior of Israel, the king of Israel, his psychopathic, narcissistic approach. If you need to understand what kind of man you're talking about, who's leading this. So to him, he wants to show it as, I'm going to teach the whole region a lesson. This is what he's thinking. I'm going to teach everyone a lesson. The Palestinians, the Lebanese, Iran. I'm going to show everyone what we're about and strengthen the position of Israel for decades to come. And all of that will be attributed to Benjamin Netanyahu in the future. Why? Because he'll tell everyone, look, you were wrong and I was right. He's even saying that to the military establishment now when he talks about Rafah. He's saying, see, I told you we should have invaded. Look at what we got, and we control the Philadelphia corridor and we control the Rafah crossing. This is his mentality. So his mentality is a mentality of escalation. So yeah, I think they are preparing. They are trying to save their backs as much as possible. They are trying to have radars in place, air defense systems in place, everything intact before they conduct something big, a massive attack on Israel. And even though we heard the United States saying, we won't have boots on ground, won't participate with Israel in the war in Iran, that could change. And they are supporting them in defense. Of course, they're trying to form coalitions. They're not really successful with that, especially because of Israel's position globally. But that does not mean that at the end of it, Israel, the United States will not put its full force in, because the United States, likewise, they didn't really have the cleverest foreign policy. They're being criticized heavily by Americans, number one, in with regards to their war in Ukraine and the billions, hundreds of billions, when their people are suffering. And Biden thinks there's a money tree, although he's getting out of the equation. But the same mentality is there. When you talk about the establishment and the elite, you're talking about mentalities that are disconnected with the population. People need to remember that. And Roger Matar, thank you so much for your super. Let's go in to your next input. Ian Wagner, question: which country needs to join the coalition of resistance so Israel caves and we can skip the war, North Korea or China? Well, neither of them would join in to kind of push to skip the war, right? If I'm understanding you correctly. But if there is any likelihood of initial participation, that initial participation would be from North Korea. Why? Because again, North Korea is the axe of China. It's the fear factor that China uses and Russia's using now with the blessings of China towards the United States and the NATO with the recent defense treaty that they had with them. So initially we would see North Korea if needs be. There are reports that they are already sending Iran things that they need when it comes to weapons. And China, it would be a last minute scenario with China. China, you're talking about a country, firstly, they have interests globally. China, they have their own ports in the United States. The port of Haifa is owned by China, for those of you who don't know, managed, controlled by China. And they have interests all across the world. They are, arguably the biggest producer in the world. Everything is made in China. So I don't think China will rush to participate, but it would be North Korea who would participate initially. And that looks like, let me have a look, one final look. Farhad is saying, look, in case of war with Iran, US will lose the most. US bases are all in range of Iranian missiles. They are, and they know that, and that's why they are always saying that they will not be participating with Israel, right? Because they know the score, they know how vulnerable they are. They have a lot of bases that are in the range of Iran. Iran already targeted them previously directly, and the movements that are aligned with Iran and Iraq have targeted them directly. We had recent attacks on them, potentially viewed as a threat to the United States and what they're doing in their preparation, and then moving more destroyers and arming Israel with more destructive bombs now, Mk-82, 83, 84. So they're saying that. And look, the US could have a plan for the day after Israel without US participation. Okay. I don't think the US wants to participate physically. Their military situation, in terms of the levels of troops, the fact that they didn't win in Ukraine, right? And they know their vulnerabilities. So there is an argument that they're trying to kind of save Israel without directly interfering up until the last second. But the counter argument to that is, well, the Israeli leaders told you for the past 10 months that we're looking at an existential war. They haven't supported them, as in with boots on ground, and went into the. So it's not like the US sent, apart from things here and there to do with special forces here and there, but not full participation and deployment, right, of US troops in Gaza, okay? Let alone with a country like Iran. I don't think they want that. Will that change when they see, or if they see that's it, Israel is collapsing and we have forces inside of Israel? Because that's a scenario that many people in Israel are preparing for. They're preparing for a scenario. Now we have people in the security establishment in Israel, like saying, prepare to see foreigners in your streets, as in foreign forces, Arab forces or other countries' forces in your streets. What does that mean? That they're preparing to be invaded physically on the ground, not just being attacked from the top. And now, will the US then participate? Well, we'll wait and see about that. So far, they're supporting as much as possible, but Netanyahu, although he tried to drag them as much as possible, he failed. Biden knows that. The administration knows that as well. Jimmy I saying, I heard on Syrian analysis that Syrian army is taking back their oil fields and running America out. Any further knowledge about this? Yeah, we heard that about one base, Al-Amr base, if I'm not mistaken, that the US forces were expelled from, right? And then you have the attacks that Israel carried out. The attacks that Israel carried out in Syria today. Okay, so the situation in Syria is escalating, and we had the attack on other bases in Syria. All of that is coming with the talk of having a peace process happening in Syria too. But Syria will be a key location if things escalate, and that report is correct. And looks like that was the last. Okay, we'll wrap it up with Jimmy Eyes' question. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in for another live stream. I might have another video afterwards. If not, I'll hopefully be with you tomorrow. Thank you so much for all of your participation. Special thanks to anyone who sent Supers, Napweed, The Virus, and Roger Matar. Thank you to everyone else. Apologies if I missed some of your comments. Usually we'll miss some of them with the live, but I'll hopefully be with you tomorrow. Apart from that, stay safe, and I will see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone.